Recording in progress.
No press. Nothing. Oh.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the WAIWAV Artist Information event. And it's great to have so many of you here. I think we're at 61 at the moment. I'm going to hand over to Esther in a minute, who will just give you the protocols for the meeting. And we've also got Carrie here from Dash, who's taking notes. So there will be bullet point notes from this meeting as well.
Fine.
Sorry, it's important. I think Esther will repeat this, but if everyone can keep their mics muted, yeah. Otherwise it's a lot of background noise and it's distracting. In fact, for some people find it quite uncomfortable. We've got two interpreters, but I'm going into Esther's territory here. So I'm going to hand over to Esther. But before I do, Aaron Williamson, I'm hoping is going to turn up. He's having incredible problems getting through Eventbrite. So he may not turn up. So if that is the case, we won't have his presentation. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to hand over to Esther. She's going to give you the protocols. Thanks, Esther.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. Just to ask you all to keep your mics off unless you're speaking and asking a question. You can have your camera on or have it off, it's up to you. As you know, we are recording today's session, so there will be a chance to watch it back and for other artists who can't attend to see it. There will also be some notes available after the session that you can download from the website. If you have any questions, please put these in the chat box, or you can email esther@dasharts.org, or you can text on 07483 162 541, but I'll put that number in the chat box shortly. That's it basically. And finally, we will have some equality monitoring forms, so I'll send those out afterwards. If you could send those back to us, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
I can see that Gobskew has asked about captions, and
sorry, Mike, got that bit.
no, it's fine. Normally there would be captions at the bottom of the screen, but we haven't got this facility in this account, and so I apologize for that. But we have got stage text doing the captions, and there's a link in the chat right near the top. It says www.streamtext.net -player, and if you click on that, that will open a separate page, which I guess you can minimize and have that's on your screen below the Zoom screen. So I'm sorry that we haven't got the captions actually on the Zoom screen, but it's a separate one, which you can also adjust the size of, the color and the contrast. So if you're having a problem with that, do put something in the chat and Esther can comment on that. Yep. Right. So I'm just going to hopefully share my PowerPoint with you all. Dreaded PowerPoint. Here we go. And I'm going to put that onto. So I'm going to do a quick outline of We Are Invisible. We Are Visible. I doubt if we're going to get Aaron's presentation. Hopefully he might better join before the end. It seemed really important that we had an artist of Aaron's caliber who's done so many interventions to talk to you about what he considers an intervention is. But we're just, maybe what we'd better do is share his presentation after this event. It's second best, but it will do. So, I'm just going to go back to that one because I wanted to take you through the come on. Yeah, I just want to take you through the afternoon. So after, we won't have the presentation probably. So I was going to talk about process and timeline, the selection process, the selection criteria, how we will make the selections, what to think about for your application, a little outline of interventions, and a little bit about the PR for this WAIWAV, legacy, and then we get on to questions. So you can ask questions as I'm burbling along this afternoon. You don't have to wait till the end. And there's two ways you can do that. You can put it into chat and Esther will pick it up. And before we move on a slide, I'll check if there's any questions and we can go then. Do need to keep questions pretty brief because there is a lot of people and the time's short. And I would like to do a 5-minute break around 2:45, 10 to 3, just so that you can have 5 minutes off the screen. So I don't think there's any more to say. If you can't do chat, because not everyone can do chat, then you can email Esther at @-arts.org. And I'll repeat that again. So it's Esther, ESTHER, @-arts, all one word, .org. And Esther will be checking her emails. So we had to do a film for the Ampersand Award. We were shortlisted and we had to do a presentation. Sorry, I do need everyone to keep their microphones muted, please. So we made a short film with different people saying why we should get the award, and Aaron did The Invisible Man, where he sang a song about being invisible, but obviously because he has got bandages right across his mouth, it was quite hard to hear. And then we had captions, but he intentionally wanted the captions to not relate to what he was saying. So it was an example of very absurdist, very surreal, very Dadaist piece of film. So, oops, I wish it wouldn't do that. I'm sorry, I was a bit light on the button there. So our premise is, what if the Dada movement had started now in 2020 in lockdown, or just as we come out of lockdown, what would they have done? Because as you know, Dada grew out of the First World War, particularly in Germany, with just that mass slaughter of a whole generation. And it was a reaction to that, and many other things as well. But clearly for us as disabled people, deaf people and neurodivergent people and artists, we've gone through a lot in this time as well. So it's now a more timely moment to resurrect the spirit and essence of Dada, and we say yes. So WAIWAV is an intervention by 31 disabled artists in 31 Plus Tate galleries on July the 2nd, 2022. So just to go back through some of those terms there, disabled artists will include deaf as a capital D, political deaf, or small d, and neurodivergent artists as well. And it's a self-definition. So to be a WAIWAV artist, you self-define as disabled, neurodivergent, or deaf. The Plus Tate network is 52 galleries across the UK, including the 4 Tate galleries. We became a member of this network in 2020, which was brilliant. It gave us access to directors and galleries all across the UK that we hadn't had before, and it changed our status as well. So the only people who could apply for the Ampersand Award, which is what we got for this project, were Plus Tate galleries. So it was a very small number of applicants. So it was brilliant because that just gave us a real opportunity. So I'm just gonna I keep asking someone to mute and they're not, and there's a lot of background noise coming out of it. So could you just check if you're muted? Yeah, you're still I haven't got a name on there. Okay, I'll go on. So the Plus Tate network, we decided that we'd only work with the Plus Tate galleries for this project because, for one thing, it's a network that's easy for us to key into. We didn't have to start developing cold relationships with new galleries that we hadn't worked with. They knew of us, and also we had the support of the Plus Tate staff, which meant that we immediately had people working with us to do the connecting that we needed to get the galleries on board. And out of the 52, 31 have signed up, which is great, because actually if we'd had every one of them signed up, the budget would have exploded and the fee would have been really pushed for the artists. 31 is fair enough, it's fine. So why did we choose July the 2nd, 2022? Well, on the very end of June and early July in 1920 was the first international Dada exhibition in Berlin. And Dada's wouldn't have held a 100th celebration, a centenary. They'd have waited 2 years for 102nd, just to be awkward. July the 2nd is also a Saturday, and we felt it would be a better day for interventions because there would be more people coming to galleries on that day. So that's why we've chosen that day for all the interventions to happen on the same day across the UK, with a Dada and disability art theme. And that is a very open, I was describing this to someone as like that awful thing when someone hands you a sheet of paper and says, what shall I draw? Well, they say, draw anything. And you say, but I don't know what to draw. Tell me, give me something. And we're doing a little bit like that because it is so broad that on one hand, it allows you to be really open and imaginative. And on the other hand, it's quite hard because it feels like there aren't any particular parameters. We have got criteria we'll come on to in a minute, but the Dada and disability art theme is a very broad theme. So here's the timeline. So we've just closed at the end of last week the participating galleries for them to sign up, and we've got a brochure that will go, I think it should be live on the WAIWAV page on the Dash website by the end of the day. And I will give you a little, it's only just got completed, but in that brochure, I'll come on to the brochure later. So we're in the timeline, and the call out for the artists that went out a couple of weeks ago. We've got the information event today. 1st of November is the closing date for submissions. And then beginning of November, we will be doing the selections. And then from the end of November to June next year, the development of the interventions. Then next year, 2nd of July is WAIWAV Day. Then September, sometime the WAIWAV film will be shown in galleries. And then we hope by November next year, the WAIWAV book will be ready for distribution. So I'll say a little bit more later about the film and about the book. Sorry, I haven't said, are there any, Esther, are there any questions up to now? Nope. I can't hear you, Esther.
Mike, no, I can't see any at the moment.
Okay.
I've just had a technical hitch though, so if you have just typed anything in, please retype.
Okay. So the selection panel, that we didn't want the galleries to make the selection because it would have been a massive process and it would have been a nightmare for me to do it that way. And we also felt that the galleries aren't being paid anything for this project. The money's either going to the artists or for the things like the film and the book. So to add another thing onto the galleries, felt we didn't want to do that. And we also wanted to create a selection panel that we felt brought in a broad range of expertise. So you can see Lois Keedon, who up until about 6 months ago was the director, she'd been director for decades of the Live Art Development Agency, and has been very instrumental in the development of a lot of disabled and deaf live artists. Ryan Hughes, director of Coventry Biennial. We've worked a lot with Coventry Biennial, and they've worked a lot to bring in more disabled artists into the biennial. Lindsay Stalvers, who's head of education at Icon Gallery, and Lindsay's worked a lot with us as well over the years around the inclusion of disabled people. And she's also brought a very art history, a not very knowledgeable art history side into the project, because she's got a PhD in art history. So in that little film I showed you of Aaron Williamson as the Invisible Man, she did a little bit linking up different disabled artists with Dada artists, showing a direct link between Dada and disability art. And I think part of this project is about giving disability art, and when I say disability art, I include deaf art and neurodivergent art, a status within the art canon. By that I mean, if you looked on, say, the Tate gallery and you put in black art, you would go into the black art movement, you'd get a whole lot of different black artists who would come up, and you would see the sort of theories and the philosophy behind black art. And clearly it's treated as a proper part of the art canon. Similarly with feminist art, I'm not sure if queer art has made it in there, but certainly disability art hasn't. And a part of this project is to start opening that door. And then Ashok Kumar Mistry, as a disabled curator and artist who's worked a lot with Dash. And similarly, Aidan Mosby is a disabled curator and artist, and both of them have an expertise and a knowledge of, as lived experience as disabled people and neurodivergent people, but also knowledge of the sector. And then both Heather and Kerry as a part of the Plus Tate, so that they've been so supportive of this program and done lots of extra work to get us to where we are now. So those are people who've been making the selection. So when we first met, we thought we need to set up some criteria. Because the budget now, it was 2,000, now it's 2,800, but it's not a lot of money. And within that, any materials and travel will have to be covered by that. There is a separate access budget, and I'll come on to that later, but it's not a big budget either. So simplicity seemed really important. If you had a really complex idea that was involved a lot of materials, a lot of costs, you were going to do yourself out of paying yourself. And it was also going to be really complicated to set up. So that's where the self-sufficiency criteria comes in, that you could come in, do your intervention and leave, and you wouldn't need the gallery to have participated in any way. You wouldn't need a technician, you wouldn't need any of the gallery staff. Now there is a proviso in that, because the galleries are, all the galleries are signed up are really excited about WAIWAV. And as you'll see in the brochure when you come to look at it, loads of them are saying that they're really keen to develop people, for the artists to work with them to develop their intervention. And it will mean in some galleries, you don't have to be self-sufficient. And if you're looking at a digital or a remote intervention, you will need that support of the gallery, because you need their technical setup there. But I think if you start from that concept of self-sufficiency, it will stop you, exploding into something massive. So it will come back to the simplicity, self-sufficiency are very linked. We'll leave no trace. So a lot of us like to do things that maybe would be tearing up, loads and loads of paper and burying yourself in it. And that's not to say that's not a valid intervention, but leaving no trace would mean that you wouldn't expect anyone to tidy up after you, to clear up whatever you've done as an intervention. So the intervention's happened and it's gone, and you wouldn't know it had been there. Now, of course, with some galleries, it might be that they really want it to stay, whatever it is your intervention is. So, but yet again, it's another one as a starting point. and within budget, which is 2,800, that you don't start thinking of ideas that need to have a bigger budget. I've already had some people talking about, could it be added into an Arts Council bid? Couldn't stop you doing that, but I think you'd still have to fit into the criteria. And if your idea, that would be really your business, but it's still got to fit in with the criteria. So I really think it's good to think, we don't want people to exploit themselves. So we're thinking 2,800 is about 10 days work, maybe 12 maximum. Once you take off any travel, any materials, any accommodation, you probably have got 2,000 to pay yourself, and you should be paying yourself at least £200 a day. So that's 10 days max. Now, risk and safety assessed. Now, we just want you to tell us when you apply that you've just thought about the risk, any risk and safety issues that might be with your intervention, and that you feel happy with what, you know, that you've looked at that and you consider it, that the risk is low and it will be safe. Site specific versus in any gallery. So we want you to tell us whether your intervention is specific to one particular gallery. And that might be because that one gallery is a gallery that you've got a relationship with, or it's a gallery you really want to work with. So we'd like to know why that is. Not that there's anything against, but it's just interesting to know what it is that you think is special about that gallery. Or it might be the setting of that gallery. Say the Turner Contemporary in Margate is by the sea. So it might not be the gallery you want to work in, but you might want to work next to the gallery relating to the sea in some way. So you want a setting that has the sea, or it might be a park. So if it is site specific, you really need to say it is specific, because otherwise you might have a first, second and third choice of galleries, and it could be in any of those three galleries. And if you were chosen for your third choice, you'd be as happy as if it was your first choice. But obviously if it's site specific, then it can only be in that one site. And we would have to, when we're looking at the selection, we would approach those two very differently. Because if a particular idea that was site specific was against someone's first, second or third choice, we would probably veer towards the site specific, because that could only be in that space. It's going to be a complicated thing doing the selection, but it's just important that you know that. And we don't want an essay about Dada and disability art influences, but it's just good to see how you think it might have, where your thinking might have come through on that. So Esther, any questions on the criteria? Hello, Esther.
Hello.
Any questions?
Sorry about that. I'm just trying to look at my emails and speak to you as well. Give me a second. I'll just bring them up. Oh, yeah, we've had a few questions.
Okay.
Can you talk a bit more about, can the intervention be done from home or remotely?
That's a great question. So definitely that option has to be there, because there's a lot of you who won't want to be in a gallery there'll be health reasons, there'll be just anxiety about doing that. And yeah, well, I know that there's a lot of artists who don't leave home, they work from home and it is their base. So having the remote opportunity, the digital opportunity has to be part of this. And I looked through the brochure today, and some of the galleries do talk about working with web and the like, but what I'm going to do is, I've got Drew Gosling who's asked me this yesterday, and I realized I should have had this as a question to all the galleries, you know, several weeks ago, about which one of them could work with a remote intervention into the gallery. I imagine all of them can, but I just need to be absolutely sure that all of them have got that technology. I know Preston the gallery is closed, and so they're offering because they're council run, we can use the park and some other outside spaces. So I think that definitely would not be one that you could do a remote, because there just wouldn't be the technological setup. They'd have to get in some sort of satellite link, and that costs a lot of money. So that within a week, I should be able to add to the brochure any galleries that will say, no, you can't do a remote one because we haven't got the technological setup. And how you approach that, I think you just go through the very simple application the same way as if yours was going to be within the gallery. And I know that it could be an intervention that was a film. It could be an intervention that was like a Zoom link in there. It could be an intervention on the website of the gallery or on their social media. So it's quite a broad thing, that. Okay.
Lots of people have been asking when the brochure will be available.
Okay. So you could answer that, Esther.
Yeah. we hope that we should be able to put it on the website this afternoon, latest tomorrow. So you can download it from the website. If you've got any difficulty doing that for whatever reason, then you can email me at Esther, ESTHER, @-arts.org. Okay, and we've got some more questions. Is there a particular art medium that can be used in the intervention? I understand interventions as a form of performance, but can other artistic mediums be incorporated?
Yes, there's no reason why it couldn't be any artistic medium. Every time I think of oh no, that can't, oh yes, it could be. It doesn't feel like there is a line that says that is okay, that is not okay. So really, I think it's down to yourselves what you would like to do and what would be exciting, what you feel very passionate about. Right, maybe if you could hold, Esther, I'll just move to the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have looked at the Jerwood one-to-one that came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's definitely worth looking at, and Jerwood are really trying to make the whole selection process as unbiased as possible. And so we've been looking at here as well. So we will anonymize every application, so you'll just be given a number. We've got to work through the system of some people putting first, second and third choice or site specific. We would check that the application meets the criteria. So only those that meet the criteria will go through to the selection process. We'll create a shortlist for each gallery. We'll either select a first, second or third choice. So because it might be that the first choice can't happen, that the gallery would say that's just not going to work here, and then we'd go to the second choice. Or if we've got a list, I'm thinking particularly some of the bigger galleries like the Tates might have a really long list, and it's be impossible for us to come down to first, second, third, because we don't want to be that judgmental of what you're putting in to say, you know, this is better than that. So if that happens, it actually won't be drawn out of a hat. We're just waiting for the delivery of a bingo machine, which seems very Dadaist, and we will have numbered ping pong balls in the bingo machine, and that the bingo machine will draw out the first, second and third choice. And every applicant will get 1 line of feedback. 1 line of feedback is very little, but at this moment, I'm expecting that we will get more than 50 applications. I'd be really disappointed if we only got 50, and maybe people will get more than 1 line if we don't get so many applications, but I'm expecting we will get a lot. A couple more questions.
Okay, can you tell us if a collaborative group can apply as an artist?
Yep, that's a good question. So I think in one of the slides coming up, it will say you can apply as a solo, you can apply as a duo, or you could apply as a group. Obviously, if you apply, the more of you doing the intervention, the less, you know, the more strained the budget is, your budget, but you have to work around that and just bear that in mind. But I'm aware that for some people, they will want to do it as a group because it would be more interesting, it would be more fun, and they'll also be able to do something that would be maybe more effective, they feel. But, and people have been asking me, can you do more than one application? Well, you can't as an individual, you only can put in one. But if you apply with someone else, that would be treated as a second application. That might be really stupid of us, but it felt like that would be a really separate application if you did a work with another artist or with a group of artists. So you can do more than one application as long as it isn't just you as a solo artist. As a solo artist, you can only do one application. And another question, I'm sorry, Esther, but I just remember, and this was quite important. Someone asked me, can I work with a non-disabled artist? And yes, you can, as long as it's really clear, and you'll have to show that in your application that you are the lead artist and it's not you being like an assistant to a non-disabled artist. And some people might feel, well, that doesn't seem right. But I also think that if we can only work with disabled artists, then we're in a ghetto. So I felt it was important that in a program like this, that you should be able to work with a non-disabled artist, but it's got to be really clear that you as a disabled artist are in control. It's your project. Yeah, I can take one more question, Esther.
Do you prioritise pairing local artists to institutions, or is it a completely open field?
It's a completely open field, but if you have a relationship with a gallery, if you know someone in the gallery or you've done work there and the gallery were interested in you applying, you know, if there was like, oh, you tell them about WAIWAV and their WAIWAV gallery, and they say, yeah, then you should mention that in your application, because that could be a part of a legacy for future work that you're better do with that gallery. But we were going to call the brochure a travel brochure because the galleries are spread from one in the Orkney Islands beyond the mainland of Scotland, way on out in the North Sea, and right down to the Newlyn Gallery just beyond Penzance, so nearly Land's End and beyond John O'Groats. And then there's one gallery in Wales and 3 galleries in Northern Ireland. So the geographical spread is massive, and there's no reason that you as an artist in Cornwall couldn't go and work, you know, apply to work in the gallery in the Orkney Islands if you wanted to. So that is really your choice. And there'll also be access issues related to that. So but it is a very open field. I'll just go on to the next one and we'll come back to more questions. So for a lot of you, this will be obvious, but oops, I've done it again, sorry. I'll have to just open it up again. Slideshow, start. So what to think about for your application? Keep it simple and clear. The budget is small. Look at the questions we're asking. Look at the WAIWAV brochure and what each gallery is offering in terms of space and extras. So that's another thing as well, because some galleries are saying, we were saying to galleries, maybe say which galleries are out of bounds, which part of your gallery is out of bounds, and then we turned it around. It's better to say which spaces you'd like people to work in. So that would give you an idea if you think your idea would work in that gallery, and you'd have an idea. Some are very open and some are only offering very specific spaces. So it's really good you know that in advance. Some are really interested in artist talks or workshops, and others will say, well, we'll talk about that once the artist is selected. Think about which gallery or galleries you want to apply to. The galleries are spread out across the UK. It doesn't have to be your nearest gallery. Let us know your thinking behind your idea. Why do you want to do it? Try and let your passion come through. Share your idea with a friend for feedback. It's always good to let people see it and just get their honest feedback. I mean, the hard thing is we only want 2 sides of A4 or 5 minutes of audio or video, because if we do get as many applications that we think we're going to get, we just won't have the time to go through pages and pages. If you aren't sure about a question, then please email me or Esther. My email is mike@-arts.org. But I can't tell you what is and what isn't an intervention, because even though I think if we had Aaron's presentation, he would have shown you what he thinks an intervention is. But the more and more we've thought about what an intervention is, the more that it seems impossible to say, well, no, that isn't an intervention. If you were in the gallery sitting on a chair for all the time the gallery was open and you occasionally coughed, that would be an intervention. Maybe no one would notice it. But don't take that as an idea. I mean, you can do it if you want. But it seems impossible for us to say what is and what isn't. There is a list that's coming up in a minute, but even that's just not to be taken as that is the list and nothing outside it. And have a think about how your idea relates to Dada and disability art. So we have got a link to a great Alexei Sale, who's just such a great comedian, and also he's very political, and he's also quite a thinker. That he did a program on radio back in 2016 called Radio Dada. So the link is on the WAIWAV page on our website, and it will take you to the BBC Sounds page. Now, one of the things with that, I can't see, maybe people have found a way that you can get captions on there. So that will be excluding deaf people if you can't get any subtitles. So I'm sorry about that. And what I guess I could do is, if there are any deaf people who want to know the content of that, could arrange a Zoom meet with an interpreter to go through what's on there. But I'm not Alexei Sale. There's a lot of comedy in it, but there's also a lot of quite serious art historians and curators talking about what Dada was about and how it relates through history to this moment. And there's little links about Dada and Surrealism. So if that can help as well. So any more questions, Esther? I can't hear you, Esther, sorry.
Sorry, Mike.
No.
Could you explain a bit more about public liability? That's
okay.
Coming up, isn't it?
Yeah. So because you will be in the gallery or in that space as a freelancer, you're not employed by the gallery, so you don't come under their insurance. What public liability insurance does is it covers you for anything that might happen to a member of the public while you're there. So it's what insurance is for, is just to make sure that you're not taken to court and then all your possessions and your home is taken off you. So it protects you for anything that might happen. So on our website, we show links to Artists Union of England, which, and I think there's the Artists Union in Scotland as well. And they will, by becoming a member, you'll get public liability insurance. Artist Newsletter, if you become a member of Artist Newsletter, AN, you'll get public liability insurance. And I think AxisNet, similarly, you'll get public liability insurance. And the costs are quite low. I think to be a member of AN is about 38, 40 pounds a year. And but the one thing I don't want to do, we don't want to do, is exclude anyone where 35, 40 pounds will mean you would go out without food for the month. So if you haven't got public liability insurance, then what we'd ask you to do when you apply is to say you will take that out if you get offered the intervention, but you can't afford to take it out in advance. Yep. Esther, is there another question?
Following on from that, if people are using their own technology, will they need a testing certificate?
I think that will have to be sorted between the artist and the gallery with our support. And I imagine if you are not plugged into their system, no, I can't answer that really, because I think that will be down to negotiating between the gallery and the artist. And I imagine what the gallery would say is either you get it pack tested, or that they would better support you on that. But I think there's plenty of time to sort out those sort of issues, but that could be an issue. I'll take one more question.
Just looking. There's a lot of questions. I've lost where I am.
Oh, okay. Go on, Esther. To let you know, if your question isn't answered today, because there will be a long list of it, then please send it through to me or Esther or both of us, and we'll get round to answering them.
There's one here. How long do the interventions need to last?
Well, there's a big thing, like some live artists love durational performances, ones that last for a long time. They can last days. I think we're thinking that the length of them could be anywhere between 1 second or the time that the gallery is open. I guess if you're in the park, you could just build a home there and move in, but be an interesting one. Obviously 1 second might just not be very satisfying, but there is no limit within what is agreed between you and the gallery. So it might be that it does spill over more than 1 day if you wanted to do that. But I think the durational performances are great, but they are also exhausting. That any of those artists who do that usually need quite a bit of time to recover from them. I'm just going to move to the next one, and then after this next one, that's just to show a bit of art. That's Naomi Lackmeyer down at G39 in Cardiff, and she's wearing a paper bag over her head and a dress that went all the way out of the building. And I think during the time she slowly pulled that cloth in. So that was like a durational performance by her. I think let's take 5-minute break where it's just, you can turn your camera off, you can just go and quickly get a cup of tea, and we'll come back to go through this at 2:55. And I know some of you might come back a few minutes late, but we will kick off again at 2:55. So just to have a 5-minute break from the screen and my very drony voice. And I'm going to change my hat. So see you in 5 minutes. Are you all right, Esther?
Yes, I found the question I was looking for. I kept scrolling past it. Yes, I've got it now.
I can see there's 27 in the chat. 37.
Aaron's still having issues.
What's happening for you?
He just can't get past. His Zoom's working fine. It's something to do. It looks like it's something to do with Eventbrite.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what it is. We've tried all different versions of the link.
Has Aaron been? Has Aaron given up?
He's been trying all this time. I've been emailing him.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
Okay, I'll come back to him. Oh.
Maybe if he could give us permission, I can try and get his presentation.
What it do is, it said if you'd like me to adapt the PowerPoint I sent you for distribution, then I can do that. So I'll ask him just to send it through as a PowerPoint, not as a Google Doc.
I wonder if I can.
That'll be fine. Oh. That'll be okay, because it's just that Aaron's is just very entertaining.
Yeah.
Okay. I just learned something.
It's an issue with his login, I think. He can't actually log into Eventbrite.
No, but I wonder why.
I don't know.
So I think we'll have a good bit of time for questions. I think, they may have sent the questions only to me and not you.
No, I've got some.
Have you?
Yeah, and there's some in the chat.
Okay. No one's asked me a question that I can't answer yet.
Mike, do you mind if it's Gaia? Do you mind if I ask a question quick before I pop off? Because I think you went into a break while I popped to the loo.
Okay, yeah, very quick.
Yeah, it's really, really quick. So I've got another meeting at 3. If the gallery that I want to work with isn't in the list, but I want to work with them because of a specific space there that would be site specific for me, can I nominate that, or is that not possible?
No, I know it sounds like we're being arsey, but we wanted to keep it to those particular galleries who are in the Plus Tate network. I think because it was like opening Pandora's box, because then
I'm sure
there'd be no limit to the galleries that could be in there. And why the Plus Tate ones why we chose that to use that network was that we knew we would have the support of Kerry and Heather from the Plus Tate.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. I don't know if the one I'm thinking of is part of Plus Tate, so that will be in the brochure. I take it. It'll be one in Wales, so there's only one that's in Wales.
But what you could do is you could see if that gallery might do a partnership with the nearest WAIWAV gallery. But I know that's a bit of work. So I'm really open to talking about it, but it couldn't be the main gallery because it would just go into, I think I'd just melt.
Okay, that's fine. It's just a specific tiny space that they have that's that it's that I want to respond to, you see.
Okay.
So okay, that's fine, Mike. Thank you. I'll wait to see what's in the brochure. I need to pop off now. And
Okay.
thank you for labouring the idea of keeping Mike's mute. It's much appreciated.
Thanks. Yeah, of course, Gaia. Thank you. So
Thank you, Mike.
see you soon.
Yeah, bye.
So for those of you who've come back, we'll carry on now, and then we're going to have plenty of time for questions. And Aaron, Aaron can't get in. It seems Eventbrite has taken against him and won't let him log in. So we will get his PowerPoint, and then we will we'll have all your email addresses through Eventbrite, won't we, Esther? Yeah. So we can send you Aaron's PowerPoint. Not as great as seeing him at work. So what will be the style of the interventions? This is impossible to say now, as we expect a very broad response to the call out. They could be performative, so they could have some form of performance in them. Quirky, which is a great word, quirky, because what does it mean? Unusual. Quirky and unusual often go together, but coming at things from an odd, not a logical angle or a conventional angle, I think quirky. I haven't read a dictionary definition of quirky, but that's how I would see it. Unusual. Unusual is a funny word because what is usual and what is unusual? Durational, so that it will be over a certain length of time, but that length of time could be very long or it could be very short. It could be very short but repeated. Minimal, so it could be minimal, so it could be something very, very simple that happens, that if you didn't know it was happening, you wouldn't know it had happened, if that makes sense to you. It could be a solo, it could be a duo, it could be a group. It could be a social media takeover if the gallery allows that. And that's one of the things we'll be asking galleries, so that you'll know that which galleries are happy for that. It could be virtual, remote, or digital, and much, 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 much more. So, let's have a couple more questions, Esther.
Can the idea be changeable or fluid in its structure? So can the idea differ from the application if agreed over time?
Yeah. I mean, of course, because ideas always do change, but the changes would have to be in conversation with the gallery.
Kind of on from there. Is it okay to make a physical change to the gallery? For example, take a door off?
If the gallery are happy with that, and like they feel like that it's going to be safe and no one's going to get injured from you doing that, then I can't, that would be up to the gallery.
Okay. Coming back to the self-sufficiency criteria, someone's asking, much of my work includes interactive digital spaces that use screens, laptops and webcams, etc. Would this be an issue for the self-sufficiency criteria?
I think only you would know that. Clearly, if you were going to not be at the gallery, and so there's a technological setup, then you would own, it would be wise to only apply to the galleries that say that they're happy to work with a digital, a remote or virtual intervention, and that they're happy to provide that any techie support that would need. So in a sense, that self-sufficiency term is being stretched. If you yourself were going to be in there and setting it up, then that does seem like you would have to think how you could be self-sufficient, and you probably would need to plug in at some place in the gallery. So I guess that question is, I'm wavering on giving you a clear yes or no, because I think it's where I need to ask all the galleries some quite clear questions. And maybe if you could send me an email, not about your exact intervention, but the sort of equipment that you might feel, if you were doing it remotely and you were going to ask the gallery to set up for you, what sort of equipment you might need. So then I can ask all the galleries, the 31 galleries, whether they feel this, they could say yes or no to that. I'll take one more question, Esther.
I think it's mostly been covered, Mike.
Oh, okay. So
no, hold on.
oh, we'll come back in a minute to it.
Here we go. They're coming in now.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Are any noises we might make in an intervention be up to the gallery?
I think all the galleries have come in very clearly. As you can see, it's 31 out of 52. So there are like 19 galleries who've chosen for different reasons. Some don't have a physical, they don't have an exhibition space. They're an organization that might have an office, but they don't have a public space. So some of those would have had to think quite left field to think how they could be part of this. But I think other galleries that might have felt cautious about it, especially as they're not going, they're not directly involved in the selection. So that I think all the galleries realize an intervention could have things that might be disturbing, because some things will be. So if in that way you mean, if I'm going to make noises, or if I'm going to shout, or that I'm going to sing, or I'm going to do things that are very quick, that could make, then I can't believe that any of the galleries are going to have an issue, and I would really take them up on that. So I think, no, otherwise everything is going to be so blanded down. It's going to be so bland that there's no point in doing this project, because it's going to be a lot of work for us all. But the exciting thing about it is the creativity of what's going to happen on July the 2nd. I think, hopefully I've answered that.
Yeah, and how much experience do you need as an artist to enter?
It's a good question, because one of the things we want to do with this project is not just have established, like, disabled live artists who have been doing loads of interventions and work in galleries. Some of them, it will be great to have them part of this program, because what they bring to it will be their years of experience. But also we want those early and emerging, and some of you might not like those words, early and emerging, and they're very broad, but artists who are earlier in their careers, and even there I use the word career, and not everyone sees themselves on a career path, but it's going to be a broad base, because a lot of the galleries are saying they really want to support the artists to develop their intervention. So, which seems to me that they're taking on that some of the artists will be less experienced at doing interventions and would really appreciate that support. Should I just do the PR? Because it's not, this is in one way, the PR is something that happens over the head of this, but because along with getting the Ampersand Award, which was brilliant, we got Bolton and Quinn, and I have to admit, I should have known who Bolton and Quinn are, but I had no idea. But if you looked at their website, you see that they've represented places like the Guggenheim, the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They do the Turner Prize, Tate Britain, and so it goes on. And it's like a league that we have very, very minimal PR, and we usually don't get much mention of what any of our work at Dash. So Bolton and Quinn are going to be brilliant. And so they'll be looking at trying to get a media partner, which would either be Channel 4 or the BBC, because the BBC have got all those local and regional setups. So it could be perfect, because if you think on the July 2nd, there will be events by disabled artists, interventions happening all across the UK on that one day. So it would be, if we didn't get any media attention, then I would eat this hat. I probably would have to eat the hat. It would be just, we would have failed if disability art couldn't get at least a mention on some point on regional and national press on that day. Then I think we'd have failed. So with Bolton and Quinn, it doesn't mean say we will, but I would be really surprised if we didn't. And that last line, I think, so there's an element of secrecy leading up to the day with drip feed leaks creating a buzz. And the galleries will have a press embargo until the day. So something will be happening. People won't be quite sure. So there'll be an element that is sort of the buzz, but what's going to happen? And the public won't know the detail until WAIWAV Day. So that seemed quite important, that there was a sort of secrecy that these things were going to happen in galleries and you weren't quite sure. And it could be that the people coming on the day to see the interventions won't actually know if they've seen it or not, because it could create, if the intervention was quite minimal, then people might think that someone who was sitting down against the wall was the intervention, or that person who was blowing their nose or was talking into their phone. So it could be just create that altered reality in a space, or it could be really obvious what the intervention is. I've just got 2 slides and then we've got questions. So I'll just go through these and then we'll come to questions, because we've got 20 minutes or so. So the legacy. So Justin Edgar, who runs 104 Films, a disabled filmmaker, we contract him to make the WAIWAV film. And we particularly picked Justin because he's made quite a lot of longer feature films, and it feels that what we're looking here is less a documentary, because he said, if I made a film that had 31 artists, or we were thinking 50 then, but 31 artists doing an intervention and talking to the camera about themselves, it would be really boring. Not because the artists are boring, but it would just be talking heads. So he came back the next day and said, well, I've always wanted to hire a helicopter and have a camera person with me, and that we would then go around and try and catch as many interventions as we could in the day, which is probably not going to be many. And I imagine that him and the camera person would turn up at a gallery and the interventions happened. So the film would be quite Dadaist, it would be quite bizarre, but he's also going to include some of the individual artist documentation in his film, and probably a separate film, so that we will ask each of the 31 artists to create documentation of their process and document what they do on the day in whatever way they want to. And then that will get included in either Justin's film or a separate film, and they'll be shown in the WAIWAV galleries from September 2022. So in some ways, the film, the WAIWAV film, will be more of an art piece than the interventions, in the sense that it will be a clear thing people can sit and watch, while some of the interventions people may not know they've happened. And then part of the award was £150,000. So it sounds like loads of money, But then if you're going to pay 31 artists, even 2,800, the budget starts to sink away. And but there was a budget for producing a publication. And at the moment, Colin Hambrook, who's the editor of Disability Arts Online, is thinking through whether he'll take on the editing of the book. But we want it to be a mix of scholarly articles. I like that word, scholarly. So putting the disability art movement in context with the art canon, and that bit I was saying about how if you look on the Tate website, disability art really comes up about artists who have a disability. So it's got people like Van Gogh, Cézanne, Turner. And so it's not got the political side of disability art and the social model. It's not in there, and it's not as in the context of where it's come from. So, and then artist stories, because a book to be interesting, it's got to have lots of full color pictures of artwork. So Colin will have, as the editor, will shape that book, but I think it's got to have lots of images from the WAIWAV project. And then the other legacies, the interventionists and the galleries. So the potential longer term relationship between the artist who does the intervention and that gallery. And in some cases that may not go anywhere. It might be because of just geography. But I think when you start to read what a lot of the galleries say, they particularly are really excited about WAIWAV, because you might sneer at this, but they also, a lot of them say, we aren't working with disabled artists enough. And that's a big thing, that they are actually even saying that. And we see WAIWAV as a real part of a process for us to be working with more disabled artists, and also changing our audience within our space. So that potential longer term relationship is an unknown, but I think it could be something. So I wanted to say thanks to the Ampersand Foundation for giving us this money, because without it, we wouldn't all be here and we wouldn't have this potential. And also the Plus Tate network for supporting this project. And I, in advance, thank all of you for your marvelous applications you're going to send in. So I'll go back to Esther now for any questions.
Hello. Yes, we've got more questions.
Oh, I did stop screen sharing, so you don't have to have that there. Oh, sorry, Esther. Could I just do one thing? Because I've got the document open that's got the 31 galleries on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I have got the brochure, but I didn't really want to go through that because it is quite long. And I'll just run through this list and it will just give you an idea. So these are the galleries that signed up. Arnold Feeney in Bristol, brilliant space, long history of doing live art. And it's also in a really interesting space outside within the docks there. The Baltic up in Newcastle, big building, really interesting building. Centre for Contemporary Art, that's in Derry in Northern Ireland. Interesting gallery. They were the first one to come in. So that says a lot for them. First Sight, who've just won the Art Fund Award for Museum of the Year. They're in Colchester in Essex. Focal Point, who are in Southend. Fruit Market in Edinburgh. This is a real test of my memory. Golden Thread Gallery in Belfast. Grisdale Arts in the village of Grisdale in Cumbria in the Lake District. And their space is the local pub, the Farmer's Arms, they've taken over. So I think you start to get, we're only a little way into the list, but the variety is massive. Glyn Vivian Art Gallery in Swansea. And so Glyn Vivian are a council-run gallery, but they're like a museum and art gallery, but a really nice space and very mixed. Harris Museum and Art Gallery in Preston. So they're closed for a big, big renovation for the next few years. But I was saying about them having, as a council-funded gallery, that they have the use of the park. So they've got a Victorian park and another space as well. Home in Manchester, very funky space. Not that the others aren't funky. Hepworth in Wakefield, very interesting place. Icon Gallery, Birmingham. John Hansard Gallery in Southampton. Leeds Art Gallery in Leeds. Liverpool Biennial, and Liverpool Biennial. The biennial happened this year, so next year was perfect because I didn't know if they'd be interested because the biennial isn't happening next year, but they really were in very early and they don't have their own space, so they will be looking at spaces within Liverpool that the work could be, the intervention could happen. Manchester Art Gallery, another big city gallery. Mima in Middlesbrough. MK Gallery in Milton Keynes. Modern Art Oxford. Newlyn Gallery just outside Penzance. Nottingham Contemporary. The Pier Art Centre in Stromness in Orkney. Site Gallery in Sheffield. Tate Britain in London. Tate Liverpool in Liverpool. Tate St Ives in St Ives. Towner in Eastbourne. Turner Contemporary in Margate, and Void in Derry in Northern Ireland. So it's quite amazing. Two of the two galleries in Derry are both in the list. So I'll stop sharing that. So we've got another 10, 12 minutes for questions.
Okay. So are the artists, as the artist, do they need to keep quiet between family and friends about their intervention?
Well, I guess that would be agreed between, that we do need that secrecy. And I think that will all be agreed between us and the gallery you're working with. You want to tell people, and I guess what you can do is you could tell the person and you say, don't tell anyone, that they will tell lots of people. But I guess what will happen then is you'll get Chinese, no, is that okay, say Chinese whispers? Probably isn't. You'll just get that thing where it will change into something completely different. And by the time the 30th person, and that could be your intervention. So people expect to turn up to see elephants parading or something. So how can we stop you telling people? It might be different if you went on local radio. But then if you were a true Dadaist, you would probably go onto the radio and say something completely different from what you plan to do. So there is an element of naughtiness in this. It's a funny word to use with our project, but there is that element of cheekiness and sort of, well, I think if you listen to the radio Dada, you'll get the humor that particularly Alexei Sale and Arthur Smith and other people are putting in there. But I know also other people have already been coming in with ideas that relate to their experience through COVID and that they want to bring that in. And that was clearly what Dada was about as well, because of the First World War. And how could you, maybe you couldn't relate a piece of art directly to that slaughter without it, you maybe want to find other ways. So it feels that the political element and the social commentary within it, as well as the humor, I think humor is important. And I think that's why we got the this Ampersand Award, is that coming out of COVID, there does need to be that element of humor that is important for us all as human beings to share that, but not being trite. But then again, I'm set in a bar, and you could, if you want to be trite, you can be. Next.
How accessible does everything need to be? And does that have to be within the budget? Will you be available for accessibility advice?
Oh yeah, definitely. And all the galleries you've got to be in an accessible space within the gallery, and not all the galleries are accessible. And if they aren't, or they've got spaces that aren't, then we wouldn't want them to be in there, because unless, I was just saying, unless you want to make the commentary about the fact this is what disabled people face all the time in accessibility. But there's, so, but I think there is a budget of 10,000 for access, which sounds, I just think it's tiny really, when you think there's 31 interventions. If you divide that up by 31, it's about £300. And for some people, you will need extra access costs for accommodation, for maybe PAs, and you may not have an access to work contract. So we've got to treat that budget with, quite protect it. So it's not that we are going to divide it out equally. We expect that some people won't need any access support, and other artists will need an amount out of that. And so your personal access as an artist has got to come first. And so we will want to discuss that with you and make sure that it's going to be, that there will be enough to support you to better do your intervention. And then the access for your event, then I think that's a discussion between us, yourself, and the gallery, because the gallery should be a part of making sure it's accessible. Next question.
Okie dokie. Somebody's asking if the brochure will have an idea of the space, give an idea of the space that each gallery will have. Yes, it does. It does describe the areas that they have available and that they've kind of got in their mind's eye that you might want to use.
That I'd just say a little more on that, Esther, that we haven't put any contact details in the brochure because we just feel we should be the interface for now between all of you and the gallery, just so everyone's workload, like yourselves, is dealing with opening up for those galleries after COVID. And so I feel if you have questions specifically for a gallery, and it might be about, some are quite vague about the spaces and others are quite clear. So if you looked at their website, you'd get an idea of which spaces they're offering. So if you have got specific questions about a gallery, I'm just trying to see what Sean is putting up.
I just want to say, does that answer your question, Hayley?
Hi, sorry. Yes, sort of. I think it's just about doing a bit of research, I think, isn't it, to find a space that's going to work. Yeah.
That's good. That's okay then. Thank you.
So Gobskew has already put an intervention in there. Please put please. I can't read it. Can you hold it closer? Thank you. You're twirling it. If you want to send that in, if you want to do a photo of that, Gobskew, I could send it out to everyone. Or I could be, I guess, on your site. Thank you. So next question.
Bear with me, Mike. Just thinking, it gets selected. Will people still get?
I missed the last part of that. I heard if I get selected.
Okay. If we don't get selected, will we get feedback on our submissions?
Yeah, but it may be very, very basic. It might be only one line, might only be 2 lines. It would just depend on how many applications we get and how much time I've got but you will get some feedback. And it might be as simple as that you went into the bingo machine and your ping pong ball didn't come up. And it wasn't that you were better or worse. It was just a random selection out of, you were shortlisted. So we thought yours was good enough to do, but it was down to the bingo machine.
Can we almost completely take over a gallery?
I can't see why not, but that would probably take quite a few people. So that would be an interesting intervention. As long as it fits the criteria again. So if it is like an armed intervention, it probably isn't okay. But then I haven't met any disabled artists who've got access to guns.
And then someone else has asked, as a speaking artist, if it's a solo project. Just thinking that as a speaking artist, I can't have a solo project as I will need a signer. So as a deaf artist, or as a speaking artist. Okay.
Sorry, that was me, and you've already answered the question, and I was replying to your response. Don't worry, that's just
right, sorry.
Chat lag. It's just chat lag.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. A good question, and it's something we will have to prepare galleries for, because there is a cost to have interpreters in, and also there are only so many interpreters, and interpreters can only do so long with that as a solo interpreter. So if you were doing a longer intervention, you would need at least two interpreters. So I think all those things are going to have to be discussed, and we may have to find other ways around them if interpreters aren't going to be available or the budget isn't going to work that way.
I think that's mostly it, Mike, for the chat.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yep. Hi, Grace.
How do we get the brochure?
Okay, so it's I think it's it's a PDF, and it's on, if you go onto the Dash website to the WAIWAV page, it will be will it be at the bottom, Esther?
Yes.
Okay, and if you have any problem getting hold of it, then you can email me or Esther and say, send me the brochure and we'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. We've still got a couple of minutes, so if anyone wants to fire in. Would the book also have space for writing from the artist, either of scholarly or creative vibes? That was from Gemma. I can't say, and actually, so that I don't collapse, I'm going to really hand like the editorial control, though Colin is a very collaborative person. He's not someone who goes off on his own, but he will, I'll leave him a lot to think about shaping the book, because obviously you can only put so much in a book unless you've got a massive budget. So there will be some sort of editing and looking at, but that's a good point. It's a good point that I think all the artists are going to take part, then it would be really good to know what you feel about this. Yeah, before we end, I do want to say one thing that I wasn't going to say, but I feel like I have to say it. If you aren't selected, and these are all public spaces, there is nothing stopping you going on the day and doing your intervention. Oh, look, I've shot Gobscure. That's great. I've never shocked him. Takes quite a lot to shock him. Yeah. Obviously, you can't go in and you still would have to be thinking about those criteria of being safe and risk, so that no one is hurt, nothing is harmed.
Just to confirm, Mike, the intervention would be for 1 day. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is all happening on July the 2nd, 2022. It's all happening on that 1 day. Well, I think we've come to the end. We've kept the time. Thanks, everyone. I'm sorry that we didn't have Aaron, because it would be really good to have had another voice here apart from mine. And you've had Esther's, so there's a break from my monotonous drone. So I think that's it. And it's been recorded, so it will come out as a film in the next bit of time. Carrie's been taking notes, so we will distribute the notes as bullet point notes. And you can contact us by email for anything that comes up in this process. So good luck. And it's 1st of November, so that gives you a good bit of time to try out ideas, chuck them out the window and come back again.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank you to both the interpreters and the captioner as well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Esther.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just copying this chat. It's bonkers.
Oh, God, it's enormous.
Oh, tick that mic part way through.
What happened? Oh, Carrie wants to stay on for a chat. Yes, Carrie, stay on, and you, me, and Esther can have a chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Was that okay, Emma and Rachel?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, it's great.
Fine.
Lovely to meet you all.
And you.
Yes,
Take
nice to
care.
see everybody.
Yeah.
See you soon. Bye.
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 Thank you.
What I'll do is I'll stop recording now, so we don't have this on the record.